Imagine a small nation surrounded by powerful empires, a land below sea level fighting not only the tides of water but the tides of war. The story of the Netherlands is not just about battles fought with weapons, but about a people who stood their ground through centuries of invasion, occupation, and transformation. This is a journey through courage, resistance, and the quiet strength of a nation that refused to be broken. The 80 Years' War, also known as the Dutch War of Independence, began in 1568, when the 17 provinces of the Low Countries, including what is now the Netherlands, rose up against the rule of the Spanish Empire under King Philip II. The conflict was fueled by a mixture of political, economic, and religious tensions. The Spanish crown imposed heavy taxes and centralized control, which many Dutch nobles and merchants resisted. Additionally, the spread of Protestantism, particularly Calvinism, clashed with the Catholic orthodoxy enforced by Spain, leading to harsh persecution and growing unrest among the population. The early stages of the war were marked by guerrilla tactics and spontaneous uprisings. One of the most prominent leaders of the Dutch resistance was William of Orange, who became a symbol of the fight for independence. Though initially unsuccessful in defeating the Spanish forces outright, his leadership helped unify various factions and keep the resistance alive. Over time, the rebellion gained momentum, especially after key victories like the relief of Leiden in 1574. The formation of the Union of Utrecht in 1579 was a turning point, as it united the northern provinces in a formal alliance against Spanish rule in 1581. The Act of Abjuration officially declared the northern provinces' independence from Spain, though the war continued for decades. The conflict saw numerous foreign interventions, shifting alliances, and brutal sieges. The southern provinces, largely Catholic, remained under Spanish control and later evolved into modern-day Belgium. The war finally ended with the Treaty of Munster in 1648, part of the larger Peace of Westphalia. This treaty recognized the sovereignty of the Dutch Republic, marking the end of Spanish dominance in the region and the beginning of a golden age for the Netherlands in trade, science, and culture. The Napoleonic invasion of the Netherlands began in 1795 when French revolutionary forces, allied with Dutch revolutionaries, invaded the Dutch Republic. The traditional government was overthrown, and in its place, the Batavian Republic was established as a client state of France. Though the Batavian Republic was nominally independent, in reality, it operated under heavy French influence, with French revolutionary ideals shaping its constitution, military, and economy. This marked the end of the Dutch Republic, which had existed since gaining independence from Spain in the 17th century. In 1806, Napoleon Bonaparte dissolved the Batavian Republic and created the Kingdom of Holland, placing his brother, Louis Bonaparte, on the throne. Louis attempted to govern with a degree of autonomy and showed concern for Dutch interests. But this displeased Napoleon, who expected unwavering loyalty to French imperial goals. Tensions grew between the two brothers, particularly over issues like conscription, economic controls, and resistance to the continental system of blockade against British trade. Napoleon eventually removed Louis in 1810 and annexed the Netherlands directly into the French Empire. Under direct French rule, the Dutch faced heavy taxation, strict censorship, and forced military conscription. Many Dutch soldiers were sent to fight in Napoleon's campaigns, including the disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. Economic hardship grew due to the blockade and war-related disruptions. Resistance simmered beneath the surface, with many Dutch citizens quietly opposing French domination. Domination began to collapse in 1813. Dutch resistance re-emerged more openly. The retreat of French forces after defeats in Central Europe allowed for a national uprising. In late 1813, the French were expelled, and Prince William of Orange returned to the Netherlands, eventually becoming King William I. This marked the restoration of Dutch independence and the beginning of a new monarchy-backed constitutional state. In May 1940, Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands as part of its larger campaign against Western Europe. Despite Dutch efforts to remain neutral, the German military launched a rapid and overwhelming attack. After just 5 days of fighting, and following the devastating bombing of Rotterdam, which killed hundreds and destroyed much of the city, the Dutch government surrendered. The royal family and political leadership fled to London, establishing a government exile while the country came under German occupation. The occupation brought severe repression, especially against the Jewish population and anyone suspected of resistance. The Nazis implemented anti-Jewish laws, forced registration, and eventual deportation. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews were sent to concentration camps, like Auschwitz and Sobibor, with only a small number surviving. The most well-known victim of this period is Anne Frank, whose diary has become a symbol of the human cost of Nazi persecution. The Dutch resistance grew slowly at first, but gained strength over time. Acts of sabotage, underground newspapers, hiding of Jews and Allied airmen, and espionage were carried out by brave civilians at great personal risk. The German response to resistance was brutal, including public executions and collective punishment. Ordinary life became increasingly difficult due to food shortages, strict curfews, and forced labor. In 1944, hopes rose when Allied forces liberated parts of the southern Netherlands. However, Operation Market Garden, a major Allied offensive aimed at liberating the north, failed to reach its objectives, leaving the northern provinces under occupation through a harsh final winter. The Hunger Winter of 1944-1945 brought famine and suffering to millions. In May 1945, German forces in the Netherlands surrendered to the Allies. Liberation was met with joy, but also deep scars. The war had devastated Dutch cities, taken countless lives, and left a lasting impact on the national memory. Between 1944 and 1945, the Dutch resistance played a vital role in undermining German occupation and supporting the efforts that led to the liberation of the Netherlands. Though resistance had existed since the early years of occupation, it became more organized and widespread in the final phase of the war. Underground groups carried out intelligence gathering, sabotage of railways and communication lines, and the printing of illegal newspapers to counter German propaganda. Resistance members also risked their lives to hide Jews, downed Allied pilots, and others targeted by the Nazis. With the Allied advance through Western Europe after D-Day in June 1944, the southern parts of the Netherlands, including cities like Eindhoven and Maastricht, were gradually liberated. One of the most ambitious Allied efforts to free the rest of the country came with Operation Market Garden in September 1944. This operation aimed to capture key bridges and create a rapid path into northern Germany through the Netherlands. Although partially successful, it ultimately failed to secure the crucial bridge at Arnhem, leaving the northern part of the country still under German control. In the months that followed, the resistance increased its activities, despite worsening conditions. The German forces responded with brutal crackdowns, mass arrests, and executions of suspected resistance members. As supplies were cut off, and the winter of 1944-1945 set in, the Dutch population in the occupied north endured the hunger winter, a period of famine caused by German blockades and infrastructure damage. Thousands died from starvation and cold. In April and May 1945, Allied forces, mostly Canadian troops, advanced into the Netherlands, liberating cities and towns with the help of resistance fighters who provided local knowledge and disrupted German retreats. On May 5, 1945, German forces in the Netherlands officially surrendered, ending years of oppression and restoring freedom to the Dutch people. After World War II, the Netherlands faced significant challenges in maintaining control over its overseas colonies, particularly the Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia. During the war, the Japanese had occupied the islands, weakening Dutch authority and boosting Indonesian nationalist movements. When Japan surrendered in 1945, Indonesian leaders Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta declared independence, creating the Republic of Indonesia. The Dutch, determined to reassert control, launched military efforts, known as police actions in 1947 and 1948, to suppress the independence movement. These military campaigns were met with fierce resistance from Indonesian nationalists and growing international condemnation. The conflict drew criticism from countries like the United States and India, and the newly formed United Nations played a mediating role. The Netherlands initially reclaimed some territory, but was unable to maintain long-term control. Political pressure, war fatigue, and diplomatic isolation pushed the Dutch toward negotiation. In 1949, after 4 years of violent conflict, and under significant global pressure, the Netherlands officially transferred sovereignty to Indonesia, marking the end of more than 300 years of colonial rule. Another decolonization issue emerged. In Dutch New Guinea, West Papua, which the Netherlands retained after Indonesian independence, the Dutch planned to prepare the region for eventual self-determination, but Indonesia claimed it as part of its territory. Tensions escalated during the early 1960s, leading to a standoff backed by US diplomatic intervention. In 1962, under the New York Agreement, the Netherlands agreed to transfer control of West Papua to a temporary United Nations administration, which later handed it over to Indonesia. The promised act of self-determination for Papuans was widely disputed and remains a source of conflict to this day. These decolonization conflicts marked the end of Dutch imperial authority and forced the Netherlands to redefine its global role. Amid shifting post-war political realities, since joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO as a founding member in 1949, the Netherlands has played a consistent and active role in collective defense, international peacekeeping, and security cooperation. The country has integrated its military strategy with NATO's objectives, contributing both financially and through troop deployments. During the Cold War, Dutch forces were stationed in West Germany as part of NATO's efforts to deter Soviet aggression in Europe. The Netherlands maintained a strong defensive posture, investing in modernizing its military and participating in joint NATO exercises and planning. After the Cold War, the Dutch military adapted to new security challenges by participating in peacekeeping and stabilization missions outside of traditional NATO territories. In the 1990s, Dutch troops were deployed to Bosnia and Kosovo as part of NATO-led missions aimed at restoring peace and stability in the Balkans. These operations marked a shift from traditional defense to international crisis management. The Netherlands also played a key role in the International Security Assistance Force (ISAF) in Afghanistan, deploying troops to the Uruzgan province between 2006 and 2010. Dutch forces focused on reconstruction, security training, and combat operations alongside other NATO members in more recent years. The Netherlands has continued to support NATO's enhanced forward presence in Eastern Europe, deploying troops to Lithuania to deter potential threats from Russia. The Dutch also contribute to NATO's air policing in the Baltics and have taken part in naval patrols in the Mediterranean and anti-piracy missions off the Horn of Africa. The country emphasizes cyber defense, joint intelligence, and rapid response capabilities as key components of its modern military engagement. Through its participation in NATO, the Netherlands remains committed to the principles of collective defense, contributing to global security while maintaining readiness for new and evolving threats. In reflecting on the military history of the Netherlands, we see a nation shaped by struggle, resilience, and transformation. From its long battle for independence during the 80 Years' War, through occupation and resistance in World War II, to the difficult process of decolonization, and its modern commitment to peace through NATO, the Dutch story is one of endurance and evolution. Each chapter reveals a country that has faced the trials of war not with a hunger for conquest, but with a determination to defend its values, rebuild its society, and contribute to a more stable world. The Netherlands' journey from battlefield to peacekeeper reminds us that the past, no matter how painful, can become a foundation for strength, unity, and hope for generations to come.